Welcome to the 8-Bit Instructor Podcast, a show dedicated to helping you level up your instruction in order to craft authentic learning experiences for both you and your students. I'm your host, Lee Tucker, a high school English teacher and ed tech enthusiast, and I want to join you on your journey to becoming the best instructor that you possibly can. So if you're ready, grab your adventuring gear and let's get going. What's up, 8-Bit crew? Today is Thursday, February 18th, and this is episode 28 of the 8-Bit Instructor Podcast. Coming up later on in the show, we're going to take a look at Google Chrome and look at various ways that we can make the most out of Google Chrome. And I'm going to share some tips and tricks and things I've learned about Chrome over the last several months to help you utilize that to its greatest potential. But before we get to that, let's take a look around the education world and see what kind of news and updates we have going on there. So several updates and news items from around the education world. First, starting in Microsoft Teams is about to release a new app that you can connect with called Reflect. And it's essentially uses polling to help educators strengthen relationships that they have with students, as well as gaining insight into their well-being. So it's bringing some of that social emotional learning into the online realm. And you can create specific questions to ask students, or you could do some kind of general check-ins with them. And it can be a combination of several things. You can do reflections and polls about assignments. So maybe asking them some things that they learned from an assignment or something like that, or from an emotional kind of standpoint, asking them how they're doing, how they're feeling, what emotion are they experiencing today. And one of the cool things that I saw on the screen cap of it is the ability to kind of track it over time. So if you have students checking in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can see somewhat of the progression of the week as far as how they're doing. So you can see if things start to dip or if things start to get better for them. So cool little app coming soon to Microsoft Teams to help you check in with students. There's a couple of Google updates as well. So one, this is a YouTube thing that is not necessarily an update, but just some news out there about YouTube. YouTube just recently gained accreditation from the Media Rating Council for content level brand safety. And essentially, YouTube is the first service to receive this accreditation from the MRC since they issued the high bar guidelines back in 2018. And YouTube went through kind of an extensive audit, and there were a lot of different factors that went into checking for this accreditation, but they are the first service to receive this accreditation from the Media Rating Council, which is just kind of a cool thing. It shows their dedication to brand safety and keeping content in a safe way, especially since a lot of us as educators use YouTube for video stuff. And so it's nice to know that they are very vigilant about keeping things safe online. A quick little Gmail update. Now, Gmail will include aliases in any kind of Gmail search that you do. So essentially what I mean by alias is if you have an email address, maybe in your, say your work profile, and then you have some other email addresses in your work profile, like a personal email address and another email address, there are places typically for additional emails. And now if you are doing a search in Gmail, rather than having to maybe search for multiple email addresses at different times, Gmail will automatically pull in any alias email addresses. So let's say you got some emails from somebody from their work email, but then you also got some from their personal email. If you did a search for one of those email addresses, it would pull in the other ones as well, since that would be recorded as an alias for that same person. So kind of a cool feature to make searching a little bit easier there in Gmail. And then finally, some news from Wakelet, something that you've all been waiting for. Wakelet now has reactions in their collections and elements. So getting into that social media game, now you can look at the collections and you can give it some reaction feedback. So looking at least right now what they have available, you've got the clap emoji, you've got the thumbs up, you've got a heart, the surprise face, and then of course the 100. So you can give that shout out to collections and things that you like in Wakelet. So cool new feature rolling out for kind of that social connection on Wakelet. So pretty cool stuff going on. That's all I've got today for news and updates. So let's go ahead, take a minute and open up the treasure chest and see what we have inside today. So my little gold nugget today is actually a Google Chrome extension, and that is the Moat extension. If you don't know what Moat is, a lot of people are starting to become familiar with it. Essentially what it is it is a way to provide audio comments and feedback in Google Apps. So it's a really great extension. I've been using it some this year. And you can, instead of clicking and typing a comment, you can just click the Moat button and then you can record your audio feedback and it will even transcribe it. So it's really cool. A couple of great features that you have in Moat is the transcription thing, obviously. So when you record it, it will transcribe it into the comments as well. So students can listen to what you're saying or read what you're saying. You can transcribe into several different languages. So it's good if you have any of those ELL students. You can translate it into their native language to help them as far as understanding what you're saying. There is a STEM mode that allows you to transcribe formulas and scientific notation. So, doing all the exponents and subscript and all that kind of stuff and all of the math symbols in there, it will actually do a lot of that for you if you enable STEM mode. And one of the best things about it is it works right into the Google Apps. So right now it is available in Google Docs, Google Slides, Sheets, but also in Google Classroom. So you can post class comments or private comments to individual students directly in Google Classroom through Moat. So if you have not checked that out, definitely give it a shot, especially this year when we've got a lot of students working with students virtually. It's a good, quick, easy way to give them feedback that's going to save you a lot of time. I've used it, like I said, a good bit this year for my face-to-face students, but a lot for my virtual students who I don't see in class. I don't get to have the conversations with them as much. And so I can record those motes for just that kind of, almost that kind of connection, that conversational connection that I can have with students. So definitely check it out. I will stick a link in the show notes and let me know what you think. So in this week's boss battle coming right up, we are going to sharpen our skills with another weapon. Up next, we're going to learn some tips and tricks for Google Chrome. All right, teacher warriors, let's get into some Google Chrome today. So there are several features of Google Chrome that are not outrightly obvious if you use it. So if you are someone who really just kind of opens up Chrome and does your thing without really looking through a lot of stuff, you may not know about some of these features. So I wanted to take some time and look at some things that you can do with Google Chrome, some features that it has that can help you be a little bit more productive, a little bit more organized, and things that you can utilize in class. So I'm just going to kind of walk through some of the stuff that is available and kind of explain how to do it, but then also why I like utilizing these features. So the first thing that I want to look at is the ability to use multiple profiles in Google Chrome. And what I mean by multiple profiles is syncing profiles to a specific Chrome browser. So if you just normally log on and log into Google, then you're logging on to the web. And if you have multiple Google accounts, you might be familiar with this. So let's say you have your Gmail open, and then when you click on your profile icon in Gmail, there's an option to add another Google account. So it's very possible that you in a single browser window are logged into multiple Google accounts. However, you can actually sync each individual account to a different Chrome browser. And so the way that you do this is pretty simple. If you click up on the profile icon, which is right to the left of the three dots menu in your Google Chrome, you'll see an option for it's other people, or you might see the option to sync an account. And basically what you do is you can have multiple browsers synced to different accounts. So if you do that, you open that menu, and then you're going to go down to add a person, and then you're just going to sign into your Google account and sync it with the browser. So you can do this for multiple accounts, and essentially what that allows you to do is you would have, let's say, one browser open that is synced to your school account. You might have a second browser that is open connected to your personal account. So, just to give you kind of an idea, I have about 4 or 5 different Google accounts, but they're all synced into different browser tabs or browser windows. And one of the things that I like about this is it allows you to save any of the customization you've done on your account. And so what I mean by that is when you save bookmarks, it goes into the bookmarks folder or the bookmarks bar. But if you are using multiple accounts, you might have like a folder for work and a folder for personal, and then subfolders on that. Instead, what you would get is on my school account, I've got all my bookmark folders for things that I use for school and at work. In my personal synced browser, I've got bookmarks that I use at home on my own time. And so what it does, it allows you to keep all of that stuff separate. So any of your bookmarks, any of your saved passwords, any Chrome extensions that you have, or even if you've themed out your Google Chrome browser, it will save those individual customizations for each individual account. So you don't have to worry about maybe your personal account passwords getting mixed in with your work passwords or something like that. So I highly recommend using that ability to connect multiple profiles to different Chrome browsers just for the sake of keeping things organized and separated out. All right, so let's talk about tabs for a minute. If you are like me, then you probably have 50 tabs open on a daily basis. So there are some really great things connected to the tabs that are very useful for keeping yourself organized and not getting maybe overwhelmed with some of the tab features. So the first thing is a relatively new feature, and I mentioned it a few episodes ago, I think in the treasure chest, and that is the ability to group tabs together. So what you can do is you can take a tab, you can group it together with other similar tabs, and then you can label and color code those tabs. So if you're wanting to do something like that, all you have to do is right click on the tab itself, and then there is an option to add tab to new group. And then it's going to give you the option to name the group. You can color code it. You can create a new tab in that group. You can close the group. A new window, or anything like that. So it's a really cool feature that is recently been added. And one of the things that I really like about it is if you have something grouped together, then you can click on the label and actually collapse the tabs into that group. So if you have something, say that you were working on earlier in the day, but you don't want to close all those tabs out, but you're going to come back to it later in the afternoon, then you can group them together, you can collapse them, and so then it prevents that multiple tab where they're tiny and you can't tell what they are. It just prevents that from happening. So I would definitely say utilizing the grouping feature in tabs is a must-have as far as Chrome is concerned. Another great thing that you can do with tabs is to pin them, and basically what that does is it will pin it to the front of your browser. So all of your pinned tabs will be grouped up on the left side. And a couple of great things about this. One, it takes away the little X button, so it prevents you from accidentally clicking that X and closing out tabs. I know if you've got a lot of them open and they're really small, sometimes you'll rush to click one off or to click onto it, and then you accidentally click the X, and then you just are frustrated because you can't get back to it. If that does happen, though, don't worry, because there is a great keyboard shortcut. If you do Control-Shift-T or Command-Shift-T on Macs, it will simply just open up that last closed tab. So if you do accidentally close a tab out, just Control-Shift-T and it'll open it right back up. This is also one of those great little hidden features that you can bust students if they're on websites that they shouldn't be, or if they're getting distracted and they try to close it out real quick as you're walking around. Just walk up to their Chromebook and hit Control-Shift-T and it'll open it back up, and then you can give them a hard time about it and bust them and all that. But anyway, pinning tabs up to the front, it's great for any of those priority tabs that you use a lot, because you know that they're going to be right up there in the front. You don't have to go hunting for them. Speaking of hunting for tabs, the newest update in Google Chrome now allows you to search for tabs. And I mentioned this a couple episodes ago in the treasure chest. There's a little arrow pull down menu now on the top right corner of the Chrome browser, and that will pull down a menu for all of the tabs that you have open. So you can scroll down and look for them, or there's a search field at the top to be able to search for any kind of specific tab. So there's a keyboard shortcut for that as well. If you hit Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on Mac, it will pull up that tab search. And so if you've got a ton of tabs open, you don't have to go hover over each individual one. You can just hit Control-Shift-A, search for it, and click on it, and it'll pull it right on up. All right, so let's talk about the Omnibox. There's a reason that it's called the Omnibox, because it does so many different things. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Omnibox is where you type in the web address. And so it does a whole lot more than that. In the early days of internet browsing, the only thing that the little URL address bar would do was allow you to type in www.website.com. Now, you've got in Chrome, it's similar in lots of other browsers, but there are a lot of good things Chrome can do in that Omnibox. So it's great, obviously, for typing in a website if you already know it, but you can also use that as a search feature. So if you just click in the Omnibox and do a search, you don't have to go to google.com and then do a search. You can just do the Google search right there in the Omnibox. But it does so much more than that. So one of the things you can do is for any Google documents that you have recently been working on, you can actually open from the Omnibox. So you can just, if you click in the Omnibox and start typing in the title of the document you're working on, you'll see it pop up in the little suggested autofill field. And then when you click on it, it will open it right back up. So if you don't want to go into your Google Drive and search and hunt through and to find that, if it's a document that you have recently been working on, then just click in there and search for it, and then it'll pop right up. A couple of other great things that it will do is, one, it will create QR codes now. So when you click into the Omnibox, you'll see a couple of icons that might pop up on the right side of that Omnibox. One looks like a little QR code icon. So if you click on that, it will actually generate a QR code and has the website address and all that, and then it gives you the option to even download it. So rather than having to go through all of these QR code generator sites and all that kind of stuff, now you can do it right there within your Google Chrome browser. It also works in the if you right click on the web page, it will kind of do the same thing. The other great icon that is in the Omnibox is the ability to share a web page to another device. So if you have your phone or a tablet or another computer that is also synced with your account, you can share web pages directly to that device. So let's say, for example, I'm searching for something on my phone and I find a website that I really like and want to use for class. Well, it used to be I would have to copy that address down, probably send it in an email to myself, then go to my school computer, open up the email, click on it and all that kind of stuff, blah, 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 blah. Well, now there is a little computer icon. It's right next to that QR code generator. And what that does is it allows you to send it directly to any of those devices that you're logged into. So now if I find something on my phone, I can click to send it to maybe my work computer, and it will send it right there for me. And one of the great things about it is, even if that my work computer is turned off, the next time I turn it on and log into open up that account, it's going to pop up on there. So that's a great feature right there in Google Chrome. Saves a whole lot of time, and anything that keeps emails out of my inboxes I love. The next thing that is great is the ability to use extensions, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. I did write a blog post about some of my favorite Google Chrome extensions that it will be linked in the show notes, and you can check that blog out if you want. But basically, extensions allow you to expand the capabilities of what Chrome can do. And a lot of apps, especially a lot of educational apps, have extensions that allow you to kind of use that app on whatever page you are. So, for example, I mentioned Moat earlier in the treasure chest, and there's a Moat extension that you can click on to access all your stuff. There's any number of kind of extensions. Some of y'all may know Screencastify. That the whole thing essentially is used in an extension. So I can use my Screencastify just by clicking on the extension and clicking record. So it adds a lot of capabilities to Google Chrome depending on what you're trying to do. So if you have any of those kind of like, I wish that kind of moments, search in the Chrome store, the Chrome Web Store, for an extension that might be able to do it. So you've got things that allow you to save highlighted text to Google Keep Notes or anything like that. So definitely check out the Chrome Store for useful Chrome extensions. They also have some theme stuff that you can download too. If you're like me and like to personalize and customize your web browser, you can download specific themes and all that kind of stuff to make it look cool, or in my case, make it look nerdy. All right, working our way further down the Chrome browser, we're at the Bookmarks bar. So a couple of tips. There's not a lot as far as like functionality is concerned with the Bookmarks Bar, it's essentially that. It keeps track of all your bookmarks, and you can use folders to organize them. A couple of just shortcuts for bookmarking. If you do Control D or Command D, that is the keyboard shortcut to save a bookmark. Or if you just look up in the Omnibox, there's a little star, and when you click on that star, it adds it to your bookmarks folder, and then you can organize it and put it in whatever folder that you want. But a couple of tips that I have come across in the past that really help keep things kind of clean and nice looking in my Chrome browser. One is to use emojis for folder names to help you save space. So if you end up in this situation where you start to get a lot of folders for bookmarks, you'll notice that, if you type the words out, maybe you have a planning folder, maybe you have a folder that's labeled for the class that you teach. It doesn't take very long for those folders and the text to take up the entire bar, and then you've got these little sub menus that you have to go through to get to the rest of them. So you can actually use emojis for in these bookmark folders, and one of the things that I suggest is use that instead of using the full text. So for something like my planning folder, I just use a calendar icon, and I just know visually that calendar is where I go for anything connected to planning. If it's, for my podcast stuff, my folder for podcast things, I have a little microphone. So it's a great way to fit all those folders onto the bookmark bar without it, jumbling up all of the text. Something similar to that is bookmarks for individual websites. If you are familiar with favicons, those are the little icons that are up in the address bar for some specific websites. So, for example, if you're on Facebook, you see the little blue box with the Facebook F in there. On Twitter, you see the little Twitter logo up in the address bar or up on the tab next to the name of the tab. What you can actually do is when you bookmark a site that has a favicon on it, that favicon actually shows up on the bookmark file itself along with the name. So if you have maybe similar issues where you've got some specific websites on the bar that are not in folders, then you can actually click, you can right click on the bookmark and go down to rename it. And instead of having any text, just delete all of the text. And what it will leave is the little favicon. So, for example, I have my WordPress site bookmarked to make it easy to find. And it's right there on my bookmarks bar. Instead of having a thing that says, website or WordPress site or whatever, it's just a little icon with the WordPress W. And again, I know the favicon, I know the little icon that goes there, and I know what website that is. So just a couple of tips for saving space on that bookmarks toolbar. The last thing I want to take a few minutes to talk about is the Incognito Window. So if you don't know what the Incognito Window is, basically it will just open up a new window that's not logged into any kind of Google account. So it's kind of like a blank slate. And one of the things that I have found very useful in education is using the Incognito Window to check links. So what I mean by that is this, especially with Google Documents. Most of you have probably had that moment. I have it all the time where I forget to change the share settings on one of my Google Docs. So maybe I got a doc or a slides document that I want to share out to my students, and then I didn't change the share settings, and so it's only accessible to me. And then I am inevitably flooded with a wave of emails asking for requests for access to this document. You know what I'm talking about. You've probably been there, especially if you use any kind of Google stuff and sharing it with students. So what this will let you do is when you open up an incognito window, you can, paste the address for that document in there, and then you can check to see if it actually works. So if you have the, document share settings open for anybody with the link, the document should open up. If not, it might prompt you to sign into an account or anything like that. And then again, it's just a little double check kind of thing to help you see if you've got everything, shared the way you want it. It's useful for other websites too. So things like YouTube or any kind of educational websites where you might be logged into an account and not realize that, you have to have an account in order to access this certain thing. You might be able to get into an incognito window to double check that. And one of the things that kind of comes to mind is like some news sites. If you have a subscription to a news site, you're able to read certain articles or whatever because you're logged into your account. But somebody who doesn't have an account or doesn't have a subscription to it may not be able to. So it's just a quick way to test something like that so that you can make sure what you are sharing out to your students is not going to end up becoming some kind of mess. So check that out. Use the incognito window. Like I said, any kind of link that you are sharing out to someone else, incognito windows are very useful to check the settings and the permissions on all of that. And then an easy way to pull that up, if you hold Control-Shift-N or Command-Shift-N on Mac, that will pull up a new incognito window without you having to click around on a bunch of stuff. Now, outside all of that, there are tons of keyboard shortcuts that help you out in Google Chrome. They're time savers and all that kind of stuff. In the show notes for this episode, I have a list of some really helpful keyboard shortcuts that I use all the time. I'm not going to read through that list because it's just going to be a bunch of me saying Control, Command, Control, Shift, and all that kind of stuff. A couple of them that I will point out and kind of explain a little bit more in depth. One is the ability to go directly to a tab. So let's say, for example, you've got 9 tabs open. If you hold Control or Command on a Mac and then type a number, it will go directly to that. So if I want to go to tab number 7, I can just hit Control 7 and it will go to that tab. If you have more than 9 open up, if you hit Control 9, it's always going to go to the very last tab. So I don't use that a ton, but it is kind of useful. Especially I use it for, like the first, second, third tab. If they're pinned, I know I can hit, Command 1 and go directly to my email or my Google Drive or, whichever one that happens to be. So check those shortcuts out. Make good use of them. Like I said, they are huge time savers for me. Once you get the hang of it, you'll notice that your fingers are flying over the keys, doing all these different keyboard shortcuts without you having to navigate a mouse and clicking on a bunch of different stuff. So those are really my tips, my tricks for Google Chrome. Hopefully they gave you some ideas and some useful things to help you level up your usage of this really powerful tool that Google has to offer. So I think we can consider this boss battle won. And now we are ready to head back to the tavern and check out the crew members' notification board. All right, crew, time to be a part of the 8-Bit Instructor Podcast. This week's question of the week, what I want to know is, what are some of your tips for using Google Chrome, or what kind of experience have you had with using Google Chrome? I know I threw out what I could remember, but I know a lot of you out there probably have some other tricks that you've learned as far as Google Chrome goes. So what are some Chrome tips that you have? What are some ways that you've utilized Google Chrome in your classroom other than just basic internet browsing? You can tweet your responses. Make sure to tag me at Comic Socks and use the hashtag 8BitCrew. Or if you've got longer ones, you can go to the comment section on the episode page at 8bitinstructor.com. Well, that will just about wrap up this week's episode. Hey, if you have an idea that you want to share on the show, I'd love to sit down and talk with you. If you've got something interesting that you've tried out in class, or just a conversation about something with education, reach out to me. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with you on the show. Keep getting out there, doing what you're doing, trying new things, and leveling up that teaching craft. I'm proud of the work that you're doing, and you guys are heroes in my book. So keep moving forward on that journey. And until next week, may your swords stay sharp and your shields hold strong. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and check out the 8-Bit Instructor YouTube channel for EdTech tips and tutorials, as well as other content on my website, 8bitinstructor.com. And of course, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Comic Socks and use the hashtag 8BitCrew. See you next week.